Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the show. It's your host, Danny Haifong. I have with me today geopolitical analyst and independent journalist, Pepe Escobar. Pepe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Always a pleasure, Danny. Greetings from Southeast Asia to you and to all of you everywhere.
Yeah. Well, Pepe, let's first talk about the last 24 hours of this war on Iran because things are changing quite dramatically and very rapidly. So first, I want to get your comments on this. Iran has launched what was its most powerful to date attack on Israel. The sensors are starting to work a lot less effectively. We're seeing images of the 1 ton plus missiles hitting Israel, and then, of course, the aftermath. Now, I also wanted your comments on what was, I think, while unverified and unconfirmed, massive reports that happened over the last 24 to 36 hours about who got hit in these strikes. Of course, there's been, since the beginning of the war, Netanyahu has come under the scope of, is he around? Is he alive? It seems like he is. But then his brother got into the fray, and there's been a lot of damage control around this. His brother Ito might have been killed. Maybe the Mossad chief has been killed. But regardless, it seems like both the United States and Israel are not only getting hit harder than before, Pepe, but they're also losing this narrative war quite dramatically. I'm going to pull up the sources as you speak, but I want to get your reaction to these things.
Well, first of all, Danny, I prefer not to comment on rumors, spin, a tsunami of spin, in fact, and a tsunami of info war going around. We don't know. I prefer to comment on facts. And the most important fact is that Iran once again tweaked their strategy, which, as we have been discussing, it's the decentralized mosaic strategy. This means 31 commanders in all Iranian provinces with total autonomy to strike and to conduct any sort of operations without having to check with Central Command in Tehran. This is from the beginning. It was, to a certain extent, in many ways, also reactive. There were, let's say, volleys of swarms of drones and ballistic missiles, but not uninterrupted. From now on, and that came from the Central Command, including the IRGC. Now it's gonna be literally around the clock, and that we are not even seeing the amount of destruction that they can inflict, not only on American interests all across West Asia, but especially Israel. And in terms of Israel, as I'm sure all of you, our audience, know, that is in terms of censorship, is the most censorship territory on earth. Nothing compares to it, especially when they are being hammered like they are being hammered, especially these past 2 or 3 days, and especially starting with the latest offensive. The one tonight, well, it's late night here in Southeast Asia, so in a few hours, just wait about, then it's going to be what, the 35th or the 36th Iranian offensive, and it's going to be the order of magnitude compared to the past ones, because they already admitted live in public the strategy that we saw from the beginning. They were launching their old batches of missiles. These were made in 2012, 13, 14, 15, etc. And from now on, it's only missiles with at least 1 ton in their warheads. So destruction absolutely guaranteed. And the Khaybar Sheikhan and the Khorramshahr, much more than the Fatah. They're top missiles, not to mention the ones that they haven't announced yet, because these are in the missile cities in the eastern part of Iran, which has not been touched by the Epstein syndicate so far. So once again, they tweaked the rules of the game, and the absolutely extraordinary announcement that we had a few hours ago, once again from their central command, which also includes the IRGC, that the Strait of Hormuz will only be open, and it's in fact open to friendly nations. That includes especially China and Russia, and some other ones, of course. And for instance, example, Bangladesh, because Bangladesh needs oil badly. The Iranians are not attacking any vessel that is going to Bangladesh. And the strait, of course, is completely closed for, in their terminology, hostile nations, and every vessel linked to U.S., Israeli, or interests of, for all practical purposes, NATO STUNS. That may include Japan. It's not clear if that would include South Korea, for instance, unless the South Koreans have a back channel to get to the Iranian leadership, and they may be exempt. So they are all legitimate targets. And the last point of the communique was something extraordinary. Prepare for $200 for a barrel of oil. So let that sink in slowly. We are around 100, a little less, a little more. So in the next few days, we're going to hit 200. And after that, the sky is the limit. And this had been gained years before by Goldman Sachs analysts. It could get to 500. If we go over 2 weeks or 3 weeks of Strait of Hormuz blocked, it could easily get to 500. We are already on the way to 200. So for all practical purposes, Danny, and all of you, the global economy is collapsing in real time in front of all of us. This is absolutely unthinkable until only a few days ago. Now it's happening, and it's going to be accelerated. Because, of course, there's not going to be Taco anytime soon, unless he gets into an absolutely desperate position. We have already confirmed that he tried Taco already with 4 key actors. Oman probably twice. I think they tried Taco with Oman today again. Turkey, Qatar, and Russia in that famous phone call. That there was practically zero leaks about the phone call that Trump called Putin. Very, very important, not the other way around. And when you read the Russian transcript and when you read what Ushakov was saying, it's absolutely fascinating. Ushakov is an old fox, as we all know. Huh? Basically, he said very diplomatically that Putin was telling a few facts of life to Trump. And Putin offered his services in case of a possible mediation. So this does not mean that Putin is endorsing an immediate tackle. Putin left in the air, hanging in the air, the possibility of if you have a really serious offer to Iran, and it's not going to be the other way around. Now it's the Americans have to offer something to Iran to stop the war. It's a completely different story. Russia could be the mediator. But Russia is not interesting to be the mediator for several reasons. One of them is every second that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, the Russian budget goes exponentially higher without lifting a finger. That's the beauty of the whole thing, right? Second, and this is what I detail in one of the columns that I wrote this week. This one, if I'm not mistaken, is coming out tonight in Moscow. The actual hardcore, softcore, and underground help that Russia is being offering Iran even before the start of the decapitation strike. It started. I don't think this has been reported in the U.S. Correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, and any of you. But 1 week before the decapitation strike, February 28th, 1 week before, the Ministry of Defense in Russia, they gave to the IRGC the full American battle plan in detail, what the Americans would do, how launch platforms, what kind of weapons, you name it. So the IRGC had at least 1 week to start digesting all that. And that's one extra element compounding the fact that the response, the counterpunch from Iran was so fast this time, only half an hour after the decapitation strike on February morning, Tehran time. And of course, something that I called it the Astrakhan-Tehran shuttle, which is Russian cargo planes bringing all sorts of stuff that obviously we don't know exactly what it is, from Russia to Iran, practically full time for a long time, for weeks. And of course, the division of labor between Russia and China in terms of helping Iran with everything from upgraded Shahid drones, which in fact are the Russian geraniums. It's fascinating, the story. Russia buys the Shahid drones from Iran. They upgrade in Russia. They become Geraniums 5 or 6. And now they're back to the battlefield in the among the Iranian forces, using the Russian upgrades, including the Comet antenna for jamming all sorts of signals. So this is part of their military collaboration. So this is all very important in terms of setting, describing the degree, the interlocked degree of collaboration between Iran, Russia, and China. Obviously, the Americans were completely oblivious about all that. So we have the pathetic real estate negotiator Witkoff accusing Russia of supplying intel to Iran, but he said that Ushakov said that. And when you read the Russian transcript, Ushakov never said anything remotely similar. No. And don't forget, and Witkoff obviously doesn't know how Russian politics works. Top political operatives in Russia, they never comment on military secrets. Never. This is something that only the Ministry of Defense will talk about, and they don't. So all of us, we have to dig and try to find something about it, talk to our connections, etc.
Yeah, no, Pepe, I think those are really important to note, because I think we're seeing a huge difference between how both sides right now are viewing this war, Iran and, of course, the U.S. and Israel. There's differing, I think, reactions right now. One, Iran appears to be very forthright and firm and steady and calm in its pursuit of its strategy. And the United States and Israel do not seem like this. I mean, even what you said earlier, Pepe, with the massive censorship in Israel, just take a look at this, everyone. This is AP, okay? This is the Associated Press. This is Tel Aviv. And watch what the camera does. The sirens are on. I'll play them for a second. The sirens are on. And look at what it does as the sirens go on. It leaves the skyline. This is a live chat. It leaves the skyline.
In order we have to leave the skyline.
Exactly. So
that's what
they will not show it. And so you have this panic. You have Israel, after these strikes have been intensifying, Pepe, they are growing concerned. They're growing concerned that there's so many unanswered questions. They're taking regime change. This is neocon David Ignatius. They're taking regime change off the table, supposedly, both the U.S. and Israel. And there's just a lot, I think, of panic and a frantic nature. Well, Iran has been every single day announcing it's going to do this and it's going to do it, and then it does it. And maybe you could comment on this, because I showed the videos. Israelis, the sirens are going off. They're running for shelter. We see the damage getting worse and worse. Israel's starting to admit this. They claim it's still less than June 2025 damage, but nonetheless, Pepe, there seems to be a widening gap between the two sides and how they're approaching this war?
Well, because in Iran, simply there is no censorship. We know what's being attacked, and sometimes we see it in real time when you have Iranian reporters in the middle of crowds pledging their allegiance to Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, and there are missiles in the sky. It's something that we saw for when I saw these images the first time. I immediately connected to the funeral of Sheikh Nasrallah in Beirut last year when we were all in the stadium, and there were 4 Israeli jets that went over twice, and they were greeted with you can imagine how they were greeted by everybody that was at the stadium. So Iran, the population is not intimidated. They are suffering horribly because what is the tactic of terrorist regimes? Like this American regime and obviously the death cult in West Asia. They go after civilians. So now civilian neighborhoods, installations, hospitals, schools, highway intersections are being bombed by the Epstein syndicate out of impotence, rage, and the fact that those idiots did not, rise up against the mullahs. So there's not going to be regime change. Cowards. So now we're going to bomb you. It's filthy. It's filthy. You cannot even quantify everything that is behind it. It's another flagrant mirror of who we are dealing with in terms of the whole Epstein syndicate. And now, because they underestimated Iran from the get-go, because they didn't plan for a war from the beginning, the Iranians, not only they had been planning for this war for decades, but especially let's say the last week before the decapitation strike, which they knew it would happen, but they were ready when it happened. Ayatollah Khamenei had already organized all the meticulous planning with 4 levels of replacement for every important military commander, leader, etc., including himself. Very important point, which I prefer to tell it right now. He did not leave a successor. He did not leave in his will the name of his successors like Khomeini did. Khomeini had appointed, before he died, Khamenei as his successor. Khamenei did not, much less his own son. And of course, high ayatollahs in Qom, they know that Mojtaba is not at the highest level as an ayatollah. It doesn't matter because they chose to elect an idea, a flaming idea, and the idea of continuity, in fact. And of course, somebody that will, I wouldn't say exact revenge, but cultivate the memory of everything that his father did right for Iran. His father was an intellectual, was a gracious man, but a man who went to the trenches during the Iran-Iraq war. So he had battlefield experience, religious experience, and leadership experience. And this is something that Mojtaba inherited. That's very, very important. And that's why he's being universally approved, and people are extremely touched by this idea that the son is coming right after the father to preserve the legacy of the father. So this, all that spells out total cohesion between the new setup in Tehran, all the military commanders, the continuity of government, which is something that, people in America only talk about the US. No, really serious governments and institutions, they have continuity of government plan in detail. And that was the case with Iran this time. And of course, this explains why the consensus, and especially coming back to that, let's say, intimation by the IRGC that we're talking at the beginning of our conversation, that now there's no holds barred, in fact. And if the Americans and Israelis go up a notch, for instance, they bombed Bank Sepa, which is one of the two most important banks in Iran. The other one is Bank Meli. Bank Sepa is very intimately linked with the IRGC. This means paying salaries, all that kind of stuff. So now the Iranian response is an absolute killer, in metaphorically and otherwise. We're going to attack all American-linked, Israeli-linked banking system all across West Asia. So HSBC, Standard Chartered, everybody is freaking out completely. And today there was another, let's say, advice from the RGC to people living in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, etc. If you live 1 kilometer inside the radius of a bank branch, please move out, because they are all now legitimate targets. I can visualize in Dubai many of these places, inside shopping malls or in the main artery. Wow, they can attack anyone, anytime from now on. So that's compounding with the end of the business model, tourism, no taxes, easy life, bling bling, etc. Well, in the Emirates as a whole, the whole business model, including the banking business model, is dead, and it won't come back. That's it. That's the end of it. And we were watching all that from one day to another, live in front of us. It is mind-boggling, absolutely. But we can detect a firmness of purpose of the Iranians. They seem to know exactly what they're doing. And escalation, okay, we are ready to escalate this to, levels that you think are absolutely out of the stratosphere. Yes, they can, because they have nothing to lose anymore. And they have already listed all the major points, and this is the theme of one of my columns. I wrote 3 columns in a row, so they are all interlinked, but one of them was specifically the American empire has received the eviction notice. Yeah. And the eviction notice is very detailed. Basically is get out of here and fulfilling all these conditions. Obviously, we know that not only Neo Caligula, but the whole Beltway and the industrial military complex, they will never accept that. So so the war is really existential. It's do or die until one of the sides blinks. And it's not going to be the Iranian side. They're not blinking. They're going all the way. And when the Epstein Syndicate as a rule realizes that, wow, I would not want to be in their skins, considering the magnitude of the decision that they will have to make. They will have to accept a massive strategic defeat. Yeah. This is unsaleable in Israel and unsaleable in the United States. How they're gonna deal with that?
Yeah, especially in the United States, where there are dead Americans. They're likely more dead than what's being reported. The Iranian government is saying, the Iranian military is saying that alone there are hundreds of Americans injured in a strike on Kuwait, on the U.S. assets in Kuwait, just in the last 24 hours. I don't see how this 140 injured number or so that's out there is accurate at all. And what is it, like 8 dead or 6 dead, something like that. very low numbers. It's likely inaccurate given that even the Western mainstream media is saying, Pepe, that U.S. military installations in the region are essentially destroyed, and they were not evacuated. So they were not they were evacuated to hotels, which have also been hit in Bahrain.
And the hotels were hit.
Exactly. In the UAE as well. But I wanted to underscore this point because when it comes to how deadly Iran's strategy at this point is, we're not going to get the numbers about this. They're not going to tell us what exactly is going on, but we can see how people in these countries, or Israel, in the colony of Israel, in the UAE, are reacting. I just want to underscore that point that you made about the pandemonium at the airports. Here is Dubai. This is Dubai. There's chaos, absolutely packed like sardines, or packed like a tuna can, as in this post, as people try to leave. That's what they're trying to do. And then the same goes for Israel at Ben Gurion Airport. Just in the last several days, you had Israelis trying to leave, but Israel actually has changed their policy, and I believe halved the airline capacity coming out of Ben Gurion. So a lot of Israelis can't leave, and that is a little bit of a shift from the 12-day war when many Israelis left. But yeah, I just want to underscore that point because we are seeing the differences. And then you said, what will Trump do? What will the U.S. do if they give up, Pepe, or if they taco? Well, right now it seems like Trump is, he says one thing one day, another thing another. This is of the minute of the last half hour to an hour or so. Telling Axios, Trump did, there's practically nothing left to target in Iran, and he'll end it soon, likely. Anytime he wants it to end, it will end. But it seems like a bit of an indication that he is trying to, or his administration might be trying to find an off ramp. But Pepe, every time there's a verbalization that, okay, maybe it's time to end this, they double down and say, no, we're going to stick with it. It seems like suicide in many ways, but what's your reaction and assessment to this?
No, it's suicide for the U.S. economy. Anything that comes from Trump is a lie. Modified, twisted lie, a lie in 3 or 4 angles at the same lie, a simple lie, a complicated lie, you name it. The fact that he's saying now that there's nothing left to bomb is a way to tackle, of course. Of course. He cannot possibly admit that he's going to perform tackle. So he changes the strategy in real time. He starts throwing all those clowns around him under the bus, Witkoff, Kushner, the push-up clown secretary of Forever War, Gusano Rubio, all those idiots. He already started throwing in the bus. Well, I bombed Iran because of them. So, of course, it's never his fault. It's his modus operandi. We all know that's it. Never admit you made a mistake, especially a mistake of geopolitical proportions like this. And now, of course, his very crass, vulgar, minimalistic language points to, yes, there's nothing else to do, there's nothing else to bomb, so I'm going to declare victory and run away. Taco, once again. So what is going to be the modality of taco this time? That's the big question, of course. And considering that it's absolutely impossible to intimidate the Iranians at this stage, especially now that they are confident that they are doing exactly what they planned and they are inflicting monumental damage, not only to Israel, but especially to American interests all over. And of course, the Strait of Hormuz angle, which is absolutely key.
Yep. Yeah, which we're going to get to.
They know that their grip on the Strait of Hormuz is their grip on the global economy as a whole. They can do anything they want during the week, during next week, next month, for the next few months, and drive the whole global economy to a black void. So this is unlimited power concentrated in a single fighting force. That's quite something. They don't even need to mine the Strait of Hormuz. The way it is now, and it's fascinating because they never, you never see them saying that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. They say that the strait is open, but at the same time, it's not open.
Yeah.
It's open for our friends and it's closed for hostile players. Very, very simple. The ones who are clever enough to do a backroom deal, no problem. Like, certainly Bangladesh, they reached up there, explained their predicament, and the Iranians, which are very, very graceful, say, okay, no problem. And obviously, Russia and China, it goes without saying. And these cargoes continue to travel across the Strait of Hormuz with absolutely no problem. Everybody else is considered hostile. And that's it. You are going to be intercepted, period.
Yeah. Or worse.
Apart from that, we have cargoes who are displaying their text messages or in their transponders. I am Chinese owned. Don't shoot me. In many cases, it may work.
They put it into translate, and they're like, "Look, it's Mandarin." Well, Pepe, let's tell the story then, because it leads right into your article about this. Actually, this story and narrative of what exactly is happening right now in the Strait of Hormuz, which is both fascinating and a huge indication of where this war actually is beyond the spin. Because Iran has said, yes, 10,000 civilian sites have been hit by the United States. But does anyone notice that the U.S. and Israel don't have any other options or anywhere? They're not pursuing any kind of quote unquote strategy. They're just hitting civilian targets, hoping that Iranians will give in. But Iran is hitting the Gulf countries, is hitting Israel methodically, and now has this economic strategy, which is absolutely devastating. I just want to show there's the U.S. Navy, Pepe, refuses right now to give escort, as Donald Trump said they would, to ships in the Strait of Hormuz. That is 100% indication that Iran controls this thing. Yep. Iran controls this thing. And then, Pepe, what happened? Well, you had that ridiculous story. Actually, not this one. But you had the ridiculous story of mines being laid. And then suddenly you have Iran, or they're saying they don't know what it's from. You have ships being attacked right now in the Strait of Hormuz that are not following Iran's orders. Now up to 3. If you don't cooperate with Iran, if you don't communicate with them, and you are working on behalf of these hostile interests, you are going to be struck. That's what's happening. 3 of them so far, Pepe, have been hit and damaged. And then, of course, there's our friend Professor Mohammad Maradi sharing a video of what Iran still has. We heard all this talk about the Navy of Iran being absolutely decimated and obliterated, while a lot of their bigger ships got hit. But here is what might matter. You have, I don't know how many ships this is, underground, but Iran released this to show that they have the ability to do this and to continue to hit ships in the Strait of Hormuz. And then, Pepe, this goes to your article. Just look at what Al Jazeera is reporting. Iran record exports out of the Strait of Hormuz right now, and they're going to China, which does have a huge stake in Iranian oil. Yes.
Because it's a bilateral deal. It was clinched, was finally clinched, the final details only Thursday last week. They had an understanding before, and now it's a solid deal, which goes directly to this was this morning, if I'm not mistaken, and Arakshi and Ghalibaf, the leader of the Majlis, are always saying the same thing about the strait. If it's our friends, no problem. There are endless opportunities. I think it was Arakshi, Ghalibaf, sorry, that said that. No, I'm sorry. Ali Larijani said that yesterday, the secretary of the Supreme National Council. There are endless opportunities for our friends in the Strait of Hormuz. And for the warmongers, it's going to be hell. Yep. And he sent this message in several languages, including Russian and Mandarin. This message was sent all over the place, in Arabic as well, in English, of course. So, this article is about the very close Iran-China collaboration in terms of sharing intel 24/7, real time, and intel on all the movements of the US Navy, especially. And this is because of the Liao Wang 1 research vessel, which is navigating in the south of Oman. In fact, in the Sea of Oman, escorted by two very, very powerful ships. So this has been going on in conjunction with the linkage of the Iranian grid with Beidou satellites, which of course organize all the Chinese space. So they are in constant contact, transmission full time, and they know exactly what the Americans are doing here and there. On top of that, we have the Russian satellite system, which is also passing information 24/7 to the Iranians. So both are passing first-class information to the Iranians in real time about everything. And on top of it, from the point of view of the Chinese, they are accumulating, I would say, a zillion Bibles on how the Empire of Chaos acts in a war zone. Mm-hmm. It's beyond priceless for the Chinese, because obviously we know how they're going to apply everything that they are learning in the future. It's going to be in the South China Sea, and it's going to be around Taiwan, of course. Yeah. Anything that happens. And they are learning in real time how the Americans play their game, in fact. So in terms of valuable experience for the Chinese, this is beyond priceless. And at the same time, when you look at the Chinese media, not official media, let's say the more independents, like Guancha, our friends in Shanghai, which I read almost every day, they do not seem to be worried. Yeah, you read some analysis, they're saying, no, it's okay. We have 140 days of reserves. Yeah. If it gets really, really horrible, and it won't, because the ships going to China can pass through.
Still going.
If we had problems, we have 3 backup plans: Russia via the Power of Siberia, Kazakhstan oil, and the gas pipeline from Myanmar. So they are totally covered. And very, very important, which most people tend to forget, they are mostly energy self-sufficient.
Yeah.
I always forget the number. It's 84.6 or 86.4, but that's it, one of the two, which means they are largely self-sufficient in energy, yeah. Which is something that when you go to Xinjiang, you see in front of you. That, it's a tsunami of wind farms, solar farms, solar panels everywhere, wind turbines everywhere. Yes, they are completely self-sufficient. And in terms of Xinjiang has so much energy, they sell energy to the rest of China. So this is not a problem for China. Of course, if they would lose, 12% that they import from the Persian Gulf, would be a lot. But they have plan Bs all over. Yeah. And the Russians, as some of the oil that the Russians now can divert from selling to Europe, they are basically going to 4 Asian countries: China, India, Thailand, here, and the Philippines. So they can also use that oil that the Russians are, they're not going to sell it to Europe anymore. They don't care. When Putin said, I'm going to ask the government to think about it, maybe preemptively stuff. No, they're already doing it. So Europe will get 0 in terms of oil and gas from Russia, and Asia is going to get the whole lot. So, this shows how this serious, solid interconnection of these big Eurasian powers works in practice. And it's not only military, it's military, energy, geoeconomics, etc. They talk all that. Of course, they're talking about all that all the time. So this is what the organicity of Eurasia is in play. But try to explain that to the West, Danny, or to those clowns in the Beltway. It's impossible. They will
No.
never get it. They'll never.
No. China's massive electrical grid. It's all that renewable energy you're talking about. People mock it, but having that in conjunction with basically every oil partner there is in the world, Russia, of course, the biggest one.
Every oil partner is exactly.
They want China. Why? Because China is using a lot of it for its production needs. So, this is really unprecedented, Pepe, because I think what is not being realized is that you have on one side the United States, you can say Israel, but let's just say the Trump administration, which is saying it has the power to end this war, regardless of whatever, to end this war whenever it wants, whatever people may think of that and their viewpoint of it. But that's what the Trump administration is saying. You have one side doing that, but then saying a million different things about why it's doing this and what it hopes to accomplish. And then you have Iran being very meticulous about how it shuts down the Strait of Hormuz. And you wrote in the article, Pepe, that BRICS has been blown up by this war. And how I see it is that we have, as we've been talking about on this show, we have three countries that really make up the spirit of BRICS, which is China, Russia, and now Iran. And
yes.
I think what we're seeing here is, from what you were saying, we're seeing how that actually plays out in real time when there is an existential war on BRICS. It's been quite astounding to watch from the very beginning, before this even happened, up until now, all the talk about it, and now we're seeing the results.
Absolutely. Okay, maybe we could, against all odds, we should keep the benefit of a doubt a little longer. I'm talking about India. India betrayed two top BRICS sequentially, Russia and Iran. That's extremely serious. This would be grounds for expulsion of India from BRICS. But then I came across a phone call yesterday between Jaishankar, the India Foreign Ministry, and Arakshi. And it was very cordial. Why? Because Arakshi is a gentleman. So instead of behaving like a baboon from War-a-Lago or the push-up clown Secretary of Forever Wars, he was a gentleman, and basically he was saying to Jaishankar, look, we sort of understand that you are in a very tight spot because you are under extreme pressure from the Americans. So maybe we can have our relationship develop. We are not going to consider you a hostile nation. But at the same time, it's very hard to have the close relationship that we had before. So we understand that you are playing a sort of strategically ambiguous game, and we get it. But of course, we're going to have to discuss a lot of serious things from now on. This was, wow. Can you imagine? After what India did to Iran, you could even imagine Arakshi not even caring to have a meeting with their foreign minister. But of course, the facts are there, and the facts are horrible. The facts are absolutely disgusting. Everything in terms of inviting the Iranians to that maritime show in India, and after the ship leaves, it's an enormous controversy in India. And a lot of people, very well informed, said, yes, they gave the coordinates of the ship to the Americans, and that's why the ship was torpedoed. Maybe, maybe not. But they didn't do anything about it afterwards as well. The Sri Lankans recovered the bodies of the Iranian sailors, and under pressure from the Americans, they could not return them. Apparently today, there were reports that they are finally delivering the bodies back to Iran. And of course, Iran did not condemn the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei. It took them 3 or 4 days to actually send somebody to the Iranian consulate to sign a book. The other BRICS condemned immediately. The other 4 founding BRICS members, Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa. They condemned it immediately. India, not a word. Only 4 days later. And sort of, So, and this after betraying Russia, because under pressure from the Americans, they said, well, we're going to stop buying oil from Russia. And Russia learned this by reading the headlines. And now they need oil from Russia again. So what Russia is doing, which is beautiful, very, very Russian. Now it's only business. You need our oil. Okay, we sell it. But you're going to have to pay the spot market price. No discounts for you. Forget it. What we had before is dead. Now you pay, if the oil goes up every day, you're going to have to pay. That's it. So that's it. It's a lesson for the Iranians, or for the Indians, sorry. Let's see if they learn it. But the problem is what's going to happen to BRICS this year, considering that Iran is the BRICS chair. In this year, when they betrayed 2 BRICS, they're going to hold the BRICS presidency and the summit in New Delhi in November. Wow. I don't want to be in the skin of one of those Sherpas, in the next BRICS meeting. Yeah. They're going to have to restart the whole thing all over again. At the moment, BRICS is in coma. It's very painful to admit it, but we have to be realists. It's in deep, deep coma. Blown up by one of its founding members. Yeah. And obviously don't expect anything coming from Brazil or South Africa. They're not saying anything about it. Russia and China, they're looking at it. They said, oh my God, we're going to have to restart this whole thing. And it's up to us once again. Once again, it's going to be up to Russia and China to put BRICS back together, right? So I talk about this in the columns as well, because these columns, they are more or less about the BRICS reaction to the war on Iran. So one of them, it's about China, and the other one is about Russia and India. So we can see that Russia and China, they are treating this war very, very seriously, and they have their goals very well established, which, okay, to give you all of you the headline, they want this war to be, for the Empire of Chaos, a defining moment. It's a war that they cannot win, and it's a war that they won't be able to pay for. So 2 strikes in one go. This implies an Iranian victory supported by Russia and China. And the position of India is completely separate. Don't forget that 48 hours before the decapitation strike, Modi was being best buddies with the war criminal in Israel.
They were a nice romantic vacation, yeah.
They were having a romantic interlude, exactly.
They were.
So it's very, very obvious for everybody within the BRICS sphere and even outside what kind of game India is playing. So once again, BRICS will have to be reset. There's no question about that. And once again, it's going to be Russia and China to do it.
Yeah, there'll have to be consolidation, especially around Iran, because now it's quite obvious, Pepe, the U.S. empire of chaos, its Israeli counterpart, what their agenda is to blow up BRICS, and that is to destroy Iran, to get to BRICS. And we were saying it on this show, Pepe, for a long time.
We have been talking about this for months.
That's what's going to happen, and it's happening now. And so Russia and China, we see them; they are consolidating around Iran, but of course, the rest of the BRICS is far behind at this moment. And India is a big, unfortunate, very unfortunate case of this, given its size and its potential importance. But it's not really meeting that potential right now, unfortunately.
Well, there's some very well-informed Indians, cultured, well-educated. They are absolutely appalled at the whole thing. Appalled. So, Modi and his gang, they don't represent India. They happen to be in power at the moment. and all that play with the Hindutva fanatics or courting the Hindutva fanatics. This is not India. This is not deep India. So, wow, they have a lot of self introspection. They have to look into themselves and say, okay, so we are really a colony of the Anglo Americans. That's it. This is our national destiny.
Okay.
And if that's the case, it's very disappointing and very, very sad for them.
And it's doom, really, Pepe, because I want to, in this last part of the show, maybe we can you can react to this, because in this, what any BRICS country, any country at all that is either subservient to or chooses to align itself with the United States ends up being on what is actually a sinking ship. So, Pepe, I don't know if you saw this breaking story by the New York Times. They're talking about how Trump and his advisors miscalculated Iran's response to the war. The first part of this, Pepe, is unbelievable in terms of just how just brain dead all of this is. Chris Wright, the energy secretary, said he was not concerned that there would be a disruption of oil supplies in the Middle East if a war would happen against Iran, because during June there had been little disruption in the market. So this is what Donald Trump was being told supposedly in the lead up to this conflict. And then there was just this private briefing of congressmen on the war. And here's Chris Murphy, who he gives an outline of the ship that is waging this war and how it's sinking. And this is from somebody who is no friend to Russia, Iran, or China. These are people who are very much interested in a war as long as it's done correctly, quote unquote. But here's Chris Murphy.
I just came from a 2-hour closed door classified briefing on the war. It just confirmed to me it's totally incoherent. We are not going to be able to achieve any of our stated objectives. But I mention it because it's another closed door briefing. We have still not yet heard a full explanation as to why this is necessary. We still have had no hearings in front of Congress that the public can see. And I think that's pretty simple, because if the president did what the Constitution says, come to Congress to get authorization for this war, he wouldn't get it. The American people would demand that their member of Congress, their senator, whether they be a Republican or Democrat, vote no, because this is a disaster of epic proportions. It's already getting Americans killed. It's driving up prices here at home. Harder line leadership, more antithetical to U.S. interests, are strengthening inside Iran. And there's really no way that we're going to be able to destroy their nuclear program, because most of it is buried underground, unless we mount a ground invasion, which would be even more disastrous and more unpopular. This has just been a debacle, a 10-day debacle. And we're going to use whatever leverage we have in the Senate to try to prompt those hearings, to try to prompt that.
Yeah, no, but they're not. Sorry about that, but they're not going to. They're going to prompt hearings. They're not going to get try to organize to stop this war. But nonetheless, Pepe, outlining there, that's the ship. If any BRICS, if India, any BRICS country, if they want to align themselves with that ship, that's what it looks like right now, just with this war, let alone all the other problems that have initiated it. But yeah, your reaction to this, because this is that was a relatively decent, I don't think a full picture, but a decent picture of the absolute, it's almost unbelievable how brain dead this operation really was.
The whole thing is beyond brain dead territory. So we can easily visualize, like an SNL sketch, or even better, Monty Python sketch, one of the old school ones. People like Witkoff, Kushner, Hegseth, and even this de-energizer secretary Wright coming to the Oval Office and prompting Trump to bomb Iran, because it's going to be easy. We're going to get our regime change. It's going to last a weekend. On Monday, you can proclaim victory. The markets are going to rise. You're going to have another scalp to your enormous... and he actually believes it, because obviously he would never discuss this with old school Pentagon or CIA generals with an IQ over 10, which would explain to him in 3 minutes that this is absolutely suicide. So what he's actually saying and throwing all these people under the bus might have been what happened. Certainly, because he only listened to these clowns, to these very dangerous clowns. Obviously, he did not listen to anybody with a minimum of understanding of anything regarding the Persian civilization, Iran as a civilization state, the power of Shiism, how things work inside Iran, how things work between the religious institutions and the IRGC. Of course, very few people in Washington know about that, but there are some people who actually have some understanding of it and could explain this to him. No, he listened to these clowns yapping in his ear, and it's quite possible this is how he made his decision. So can you imagine if this goes down in history as basically a bunch of clowns forcing a baboon from Mar-a-Lago to go to war against Iran and destroy the global economy and in the long run destroy American hegemony? Wow. I would say that this would fit perfectly because there's nothing Shakespearean about that. This is not the stuff of one of those fabulous tragedies, This is farce and low-level, tawdry, cheap farce, And very, I would say, it fits the quality, the moral non-quality of all these characters together, of this bunch of grifters, opportunists, sycophants,
Yeah.
But obviously, the problem is that, Danny, the American citizens, taxpayers are going to be paying the price, and the rest of the world will be paying the price for that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Pepe, and our friends at DD Geopolitics brought up something really interesting that maybe we can close on here, because when you said that this could all destroy American hegemony itself, there are some indicators that directly, not just, of course, the economic, everything we've discussed so far, the humiliating political, military, and of course the economic impacts of all of this, but there's something very direct that they brought up here, where they talk about how the U.S. keeps delivering its best toys to the same recipients. And it goes over this long list of various weapon systems that the U.S. has lost over the years. One of them, Iran, the so-called Beast of Kandahar. It's the CIA's most capable surveillance drone, was essentially captured, rerouted by Iran and captured. But to this year, this very war, the precision strike missile was crane lifted intact from one of the residential buildings during this conflict. And it's likely now that all the data for that is now in the hands of not just Iran, but of course,
Russia
and China. So talk about this, because this is part of, we often say that wars, the empire of chaos is wars, they end up blowing back, they end up backfiring, and they end up actually making the situation worse for U.S. hegemony in the long term. This seems to be one of the most immediate results of that.
Because there's never any strategy. They think that they can condition everything and the behavior of their antagonists by their unlimited firepower and their way of practicing war, which is basically bombing out the hell of anything in sight. They don't understand what real war is. And of course, they don't understand what is real war with an adversary that knows how to shoot back. This is the first time that they actually see it, probably since Vietnam. And Vietnam, of course, the Vietnamese were shooting back guerrilla style. And now the Iranians is not, the Iranians is, we can say it's a digital guerrilla, in fact, and a high-tech guerrilla style. It's the high-tech equivalent of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Wow, there's no question about that. But they know how to shoot back, and they shoot back and inflict serious damage. Never in this exceptionalist doctrine there was space for the adversary shooting back. Never. So no wonder they are like ducks in a pond. Poof, 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 poof. They have no idea. And because there's never any strategy, especially for this war, which has, as we know, this war has been planned for decades or instigated by the usual neocon suspects for decades. And there was no planning whatsoever.
Bombs away.
Can you believe that? Okay, we're gonna have a holiday excursion this weekend. We do some regime change, we bomb the shit out of them, and on Monday everything is over.
Yep.
This was the strategy. Never any plan B, C, or D. So now it's too late for plan B, C, and D because the adversary who knows how to shoot back just said, "That's it. Stick to your plan and take it to the limit. We won't let you deviate from your known plan."
Yeah.
Can you imagine? They sent an eviction notice, a surrender document to the so-called greatest armada in the history of the galaxies.
Yeah.
we have to be like, wow.
Iran is saying right now, Pepe, that there isn't a U.S. naval vessel of any kind within 700 kilometers of the Iranian coast.
700 kilometers. And okay, when they were at 350, more or less 400, there were 4 ballistic missiles that were sent as a warning, and they ran like crazy to the southern
Indian Ocean. Yep.
Ocean.
Yep. And then there's this element to close, Pepe. What you were saying is the no strategy, really just bombs away, and I think the ultimate aim there is with that exceptionalism and that hubris and that supremacist way of thinking that is so prevalent in the empire of chaos. They believe that the Iranian people will just give in and give up and allow their country to be taken for a ride by the United States and Israel. But you reacted to this image, this video of Iranian people in the aftermath of the appointment of the election of the new Ayatollah in Iran. Of course, there's been mass rallies in Iran every single day, but not only have there been rallies, but there have been rallies where Iranian people are very close to the bombings that are occurring in Tehran and surrounding cities, and they're still out there. And here is the here's just one example. Here's one example of that.
شما صحبت میکنم هدفمند داره عمل میکنیم و ما شاهد اجتماع حضور مردم هستیم در میدان انقلاب. ما نمیترسیم، ما اینجاییم، ما اینجا هستیم، مردم اینجا هستن حتی در مقابل پدافندها.
So Pepe, I mean, they're not only not budging, but they are becoming more energized by it. It's like it's an incredible scene, but I think it demonstrates just how this war is going, how this war will continue to go.
It is, and it proves that they are unbreakable. You cannot break a nation that reacts like that. Forget it. You already lost. Even before you started your decapitation strike, you already lost. I would like to finish with something that it's. I see it as some sort of poetic justice, and something that even have some magical overtones. I'm sure all of you have noticed that new Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei has not said one word in public so far. No appearances anywhere. Not even filmed. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So for the moment, he's an idea. He is, like I would say, a flame, evoking the memory of his slain father. And people are pledging allegiance to this flame, to this idea. This is extraordinary. He doesn't even need to appear. He is leading from an invisible corner somewhere. The best that we know is that he was injured during the decapitation strike to his legs, and apparently it's very serious. So that's why he's not showing up anywhere. But still, the whole country and the whole Shiite world and many parts of the Sunni world as well, in Kashmir, for instance, in Bangladesh, etc., they keep pledging allegiance to him as the successor, as continuity of government, to the memory of his father, and to the memory of his father as a liberator. Of course, I know exactly what a lot of assholes are going to say about what I'm just saying. He's being paid by the mullahs. Okay, that's you cannot argue with assholes or idiots. Right. It's the Mark Twain maxim. Like, it's a waste of time. But people all across the world, not only Shiites, Sunnis, Christians, Sufis, they are Buddhists. They understand the figure of Khamenei and why he was assassinated in power and what that represents. So he's a regimenting figure now all across the global south as a symbol of resistance. It goes way beyond the figure of a martyr. He's already as iconic as all those anti-colonialist martyrs that died before. Everybody from Che to Thomas Sankara. He's over there with them now. Mm. And at the same time, he is a living memory inside Iran. That's wow. This is something to be studied in depth for years to come.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and we are going to be doing that because this war, this particular iteration of it, regardless of which direction it goes in, it seems like it's going in a very poor direction for the U.S. and Israel. We know that this is just around. This is around for as long as this empire of chaos is seeking to do what its ultimate objective is, which is not just Israel. Israel, the United States. We hear a lot about Israel being the one that forced the U.S. into this war and stuff. Even Marco Rubio said it. But we also know that the empire of chaos has huge interest in making sure that Iran is gone, and it won't stop even when this stops. So that's why Iran, and this is what's so I think shocking to many, Iran, especially under the new Ayatollah. It seems like their whole orientation now is no. We're not just fighting defensively. We are fighting to stop what is happening here, to stop this. So the U.S. and Israel can't do this anymore. And that, I have to say to anybody listening to this show that is worried about ground troops or anything like that, if you're in the military or in the national or whatever, you should probably leave, because if that happens, which it will eventually happen. It'll eventually happen, everyone. If there's not now, that eventually the U.S. will consider and deploy as many ground troops as they can to try to get rid of the Iranian government. You should quit. You should conscientiously object something, because this that's a disaster in the making, and this is the ship that is sinking for the U.S. empire of chaos. So, Pepe, any final comments before we head out of here?
That's it. My final comment was that one on the poetic justice of Moshtaba. Following on the footsteps of that. Yes.
Yeah, it's cool. Great points, Pepe. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to head out together. Everybody, hit the like button before you go. Pepe's Telegram and his X are in the video description below, so you can check out all of his columns, his work. I know you have another one coming out within the next hours, it seems like.
Within the next hour or so, yes.
Yeah. So everyone, check that after the show. After you hit the like button, go to the video description, find where you can find where his work is, and check it out. And then, of course, all the places to support this show are there too: Patreon, Substack, and much more. Tomorrow, on with Patrick Henningsen and I believe Alexander Mercouris for another update on the Iran situation. See you then, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.